Good evening. Knowledge is knowing what to say. Wisdom is knowing when to say it. Welcome to BMC News Live in English, brought to you by Al Hilal Hospital and Medical Centers. I am Vinod Narayan, joining you with the daily news updates. Today's headlines.
GCC nationals allowed entry to Bahrain with ID cards. His Majesty the King to participate in Jeddah Security and Development Summit. India issued monkeypox guidelines for international travelers. US President arrived in Saudi Arabia on historic visit and met King Salman. Saudi Arabia opened airspace for overflying by all air carriers.
News in detail. GCC nationals allowed entry to Bahrain with ID cards. The Nationality Passports and Residence Affairs (NPRA) announced the decision to allow all Gulf Cooperation Council nationals to enter Bahrain with their ID cards or passports. Without pre-arrangements, the move follows the decision of GCC countries to resume the procedure of allowing ID cards as a travelling method for their nationals. The decision will facilitate the travel of Bahrainis to all GCC countries. It is part of the facilities provided for GCC nationals in order to ease travel procedures for them and ensure their interests and those of their families as a result of the existing strong bonds of kinship, religion, language and common destiny. His Majesty the King arrived in Saudi Arabia to participate in Jeddah Security and Development Summit. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa arrived in Saudi Arabia to lead the kingdom's delegation to the Jeddah Security and Development Summit, set to be held here later today. His Majesty is participating in the key summit at the invitation of the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. Upon arrival at the King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah, His Majesty the King was welcomed by the Saudi Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister and Defence Minister, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud. On arrival, His Majesty King Hamad made a statement in which he expressed utmost pride in the solid long-standing relations between the two countries and their brotherly people, as well in existing bonds of cordiality, appreciation and respect between them. His Majesty the King expressed his deepest thanks and appreciation to King Salman bin Abdulaziz for inviting him to the Jeddah Security and Development Summit. Works and Housing Ministers held meeting. Works Minister Ibrahim bin Hassan Al Hawaj held a meeting with Housing and Urban Planning Minister Amna bint Ahmad Al Rumahi as part of the two ministers' joint efforts to provide infrastructure services for the housing projects in towns. The two ministers reviewed plans to link the Khalifa Town project to the main road, sewage and rainwater networks according to the town's master plan. They stressed the importance of coordinating efforts and plans to complete the linking works according to schedule. Sustainable Development Minister held discussions with UAE, Egypt and Jordan. Minister of Sustainable Development Noor bint Ali Al Khulaif held joint discussions with the delegations of the UAE, the Arab Republic of Egypt and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. The meetings were held on the sidelines of her participation in the high-profile political forum on sustainable development in New York. The Minister of Sustainable Development met with the Director General of the UAE Prime Minister's Office, Deputy Chairman of the National Committee for Sustainable Development Goals, Abdullah Nasser Luta. She stressed the significance of boosting cooperation with the GCC member states in terms of exchanging experiences and developing capabilities to meet the goals of the Comprehensive Development March and Bahraini Economic Vision 2030. She congratulated the UAE government on the success of its voluntary national review for the second time, pointing out that this success is a reflection of the achievements made in various fields. Ahmad Al Fatah Islamic Center concluded Eid Open House Program. Ahmad Al Fatah Islamic Center has concluded its Eid Open House Program. More than 1,000 people from various nationalities and age groups visited the center as part of the program held following a hiatus of 2 years due to the COVID pandemic. The program was conducted in joint cooperation with Discover Islam Center. Bahrain International Airport received the biggest aircraft in history. For the first time, Bahrain International Airport received the biggest aircraft in the history of aviation, Beluga from Airbus, known as the Sky Whale. The 1 out of 5 aircraft's length is equivalent to the length of 2 blue whales, and the maximum net load of the aircraft is 51 tons. Today's COVID updates.
COVID updates brought to you by Al Hilal Hospital and Medical Centers.
India issued monkeypox guidelines for international travelers. India's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has released guidelines to manage the spread of monkeypox in the country. The advisory comes after Kerala's health minister reported India's first case of disease on Thursday. According to the advisory, travelers should avoid the following: close contact with sick people, including those with skin lesions or genital lesions, contact with dead or live wild elements such as small mammals, including rodents and non-human primates, eating or preparing meat from wild game or using products derived from wild animals from Africa, contact with contaminated materials used by sick people such as clothing, bedding or materials used in healthcare settings or that came into contact with infected animals. Sharjah flight to Cochin developed hydraulic failure, landed safely. A full emergency was declared at Cochin Airport on Friday after an incident of hydraulic failure was reported from an inbound Air Arabia flight from Sharjah. The Cochin International Airport Limited, CIAL, said all passengers and crew were safe. CIAL, in a communication sent to the media, said Air Arabia G9426, which was supposed to land at 19:13 hours in Cochin, reported a hydraulic failure, following which a full emergency was declared at the airport. Aircraft landed safely at runway 9 at 19:29 hours, CIAL said, adding that only towing was required and the emergency was withdrawn after the endurance period of 1 hour and 15 minutes. CIAL said that all, including 222 passengers and 7 crew members, were safe. Bahrain Cancer Care Group organized a heat stress awareness program for workers. Report.
Bahrain Cancer Care Group, which is affiliated with the Bahrain Cancer Society, in collaboration with the Ministry of Labour and Social Development, organized a heat stress awareness program for workers. The program was organized at BKS on July 14th for around 400 workers from various labour camps. As part of the program, free medical checkup, eye examination and awareness class on how to prevent sun damage for the workers were conducted. Gift bags were also distributed to the workers who participated in the event. Bahrain Ministry of Labour Under Secretary Ahmad Jafar Muhammad Al Haiki, ambassadors of India, Nepal, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Philippines, as well as prominent people from the social, cultural and philanthropic sectors of Bahrain were present at the event. Dinner was served for all attendees.
Now we will be back after a very short break.
All your favorite products under one roof in Bahrain at 27-year-old Megamart and Macromart. Bakery, fresh meat and fish, fruits and vegetables, sweets and snacks, ready-to-eat foods, dairy products, grocery or consumer goods. Megamart and Macromart, full of goodness.
Welcome back. US President arrived in Saudi on historic visit and met King Salman. US President Joe Biden touched down in Saudi Arabia on Friday, working to improve ties with the nation as well as address other challenges, including rising petrol prices and regional issues. It is Biden's first visit to Saudi Arabia since taking office and also his first meeting with the kingdom's crown prince, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Biden arrived in the Red Sea port city of Jeddah on the third day of a 4-day swing through the Middle East. He spent the first 2 days meeting with Israeli officials and traveled to the West Bank on Friday to meet with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and others before flying to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia took a step toward a normalization of relations with Israel before Biden's visit, announcing early Friday that it was opening its airspace to all air carriers, signaling the end of its strict limits on Israeli flights flying over its territory. A joint statement called Jeddah Communique was issued late Friday between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United States of America. Saudi Arabia opened airspace for overflying by all air carriers. Saudi Arabia's General Authority of Civil Aviation decided to open the kingdom's airspace for all air carriers that meet the requirements of the authority for overflying. In a statement on Friday, the authority explained that the decision comes within the framework of the country's keenness to fulfill its obligations under the Chicago Convention of 1944 and to complement the efforts aimed at consolidating the kingdom's position as a global hub connecting 3 continents and enhance international air connectivity. The Chicago Convention stipulates non-discrimination between civil aircraft used in international air navigation. Saudi Arabia and USA signed 18 agreements. The Saudi Ministers of Energy, Investment, Communications and Health have concluded 18 agreements with their US counterparts. The aforementioned agreements unlock new avenues for joint cooperation in investment, energy, ICT, space and health. The agreements align with Saudi Vision 2030, led by His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, as it seeks wider investment opportunities in promising sectors that can benefit the people of both nations, Saudi press agency said. Air carriers are obligated to compensate passengers for delayed luggage in Saudi. Saudi Arabia's Consumer Protection Association has revealed the types of compensation that the air carriers are obliged to pay in the event that they cause delays of passengers' baggage during flights. The Consumer Protection Association stated that the air carrier is required to pay compensation to the passenger in Saudi Riyal units in the event that they delay baggage delivery. For domestic passengers, the air carrier is obligated to compensate the passenger the equivalent of 20 Saudi Riyals for each day of delay. The maximum limit for compensation is 100 Saudi Riyals for domestic flights. As for international flights, the compensation is the equivalent of 40 Saudi Riyals for each day of delay, with a maximum limit of 200 Saudi Riyals. UAE to invest $2 billion to set up food parks in India. The UAE will invest $2 billion to set up food parks across India as part of efforts by a US-led 4-nation group to help tackle food insecurity in South Asia and the Middle East. US and Israeli private sectors will be roped in for technologies to reduce food waste and spoilage, conserve fresh water and employ renewable energy sources at the food parks, according to a joint statement from the group. The investment plan follows the first leaders meeting in the I2U2 group, comprising the UAE, India, Israel and the US on Thursday, July 14th. As part of the initiative, the I2U2 will also advance a hybrid renewable energy project in India's Gujarat state with 300 megawatts of wind and solar capacity. Israel and the US will bring state-of-the-art technologies and expertise to the food parks in India. Kuwait to impose KD 500 fine for hanging clothes on balconies. The Municipal Council proposed a draft law on public cleanliness and water transport, which includes imposing a fine of up to KD 500 on violators who clean carpets, furniture or dry clothes by hanging on balconies overlooking the streets. The proposed draft law, which was referred by the Acting Director General of Kuwait Municipality, Nadia Al-Shreideh, also prohibited barbecue on sidewalks, streets, public spaces, parks, seaside and state-owned lands, according to the 7th article of the regulation. The draft law mentioned that the Director General of Kuwait Municipality must issue a decision specifying the allowed places to barbecue, and violators shall be fined KD 2,000 to KD 5,000. Health warnings issued as heat wave scorches Europe. Hundreds more people were evacuated from their homes as wildfires blistered land in France, Spain and Portugal on Friday, whose officials in Europe issued health warnings for the heat wave in the coming days. More than 1,000 firefighters, supported by water bomber aircraft, have battled since Tuesday to control 2 blazes in southwestern France that have been fanned by scorching heat, tinderbox conditions and strong winds, Reuters reported. While temperatures dipped a little in Portugal, they were still expected to top 40 degrees Celsius in some places, with 5 districts on red alert and more than 1,000 firefighters tackling 17 wildfires, authorities said. In Spain, a new wildfire broke out in the south of the country after blazes in the west in the past week. Sri Lankan Parliament to begin process of electing new president. Sri Lanka's parliament met today to begin the process of electing a new president as a shipment of fuel arrived to provide some relief to the crisis-hit nation. The resignation of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was accepted by parliament on Friday after he fled to Singapore to escape anti-government protesters who had occupied his official residence and offices, Reuters said. Over 100 police and security personnel with assault rifles were deployed on the approach road to parliament on Saturday, manning barricades and a water cannon to prevent any unrest. Columns of security forces patrolled another approach road to parliament, though there were no signs of any protesters. Lawmakers are scheduled to elect a new president within a week, with 6-time Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, an ally of Rajapaksa, who is the sole representative of his party in parliament, sworn in as acting president until then. With that, we come to the end of today's news. Stay tuned for daily news updates in BMC News Live English at 7:30 p.m. every day. I am Vinod Narayanan signing off from BMC News Live. Good night.